time?
Yes.
So once you went inside, where did you go?
Once we were inside the residence, we went up the stairs to the main floor, and we took a left down that hallway that was described to us where the subjects were.
What did you observe in that hallway as you went down it?
As we were going down the hallway, I noticed that the bedroom that was described, the back left bedroom, the door was open, and also noticed a white, called a drawer organizer, but it's like a cabinet, white plastic cabinet in the hallway.
Did you notice anything of significance around that drawer?
On the top of the cabinet was a black semi-automatic Glock handgun.
What did you do when you observed that handgun?
I called it out to the other officers so they were aware of its presence there.
Did you observe anything about that gun, its make, its manufacturer, anything like that?
I noticed there was a Glock, which is the same type firearm we carry, so I recognized it that way.
Okay. Did you go inside that bedroom or the room that Danielle Castiglione had described to you?
Yes.
Was the door open to that room at the time?
Yes, the door was open.
What did you observe about the condition of that room?
It was being remodeled, and at least being painted. I know that all the furniture in the room was pushed in towards the middle, and then there was a painter's tarp or cloth, if you will, on the floor, consistent with obviously being painted.
Was there anyone inside that room?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about that.
There was a subject who was later identified as Brandon Castiglione, was inside of the bedroom, just a couple feet from the doorway. He was on the floor. It's kind of hard to describe, like a fetal type position on his hands and knees with his hands on his head on the ground. He was kind of trembling. And then there's another subject. I could only see his legs sticking out from behind a cabinet or a dresser that was in the middle of the room.
That first person you described, male in a fetal position, I think is how you put it, on his hands and knees. Do you see that person in the courtroom today?
I do, yes.
Could you point him out and describe a piece of clothing he's wearing?
He's wearing a white dress shirt.
The record reflect the witness has identified the defendant.
What do you do?
No objection.
Good job.
Was the defendant moving when you saw him there in that room?
Like I said, he was trembling. Just small movements, nothing of significance.
Did you hear him saying anything when you went inside?
He was mumbling. I couldn't make out what it was that he was saying.
Could you determine a general gist of what it was that he was doing there on the floor?
It was definitely odd, him being there. It was, as far as what he was doing on the floor, I don't know.
And I think you said that you saw someone else's legs in the room?
Correct, yes.
Did anyone, could you describe the position of those legs that you saw?
So like I said, they were sticking out from behind a dresser. I could tell by the orientation that the subject was on his back, and his legs were bent.
Did anyone check on that person?
Yes, Officer Morin did.
Was Officer Morin the first person to go in that room?
Yes.
Okay. And when you say checked on him, how did he do that?
Officer Morin walked around. The furniture was all pushed in towards the middle. I couldn't see him, but I heard him say that it appeared that the male was deceased.
Was that male laying on his back as you described it, was he ever identified?
Yes.
Who was that?
Luis Garcia.
At that point, or at any point, did you fully enter the room?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Where were you positioned inside the room?
I stayed behind Mr. Castiglione while Officer Morin checked on Mr. Garcia.
And that's behind the defendant?
Yes, correct, yes.
As you stood there, what did you observe from that position?
From that position, a few feet, or just a couple feet from the defendant's head, was a single shell casing on the floor.
You said earlier you had seen that black pistol, the Glock, outside in the hallway. How close to the defendant would you estimate that handgun was?
Several feet. It wasn't far at all 5-6 feet. I don't know exactly, but that'd be my guess.
You said earlier that you recognized it as a Glock.
Correct.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Showing you what's marked for identification as States 4. Do you recognize this photograph?
I do, yes.
And what is in this photograph?
This is the cabinet that I described with the handgun on top of it.
Is this photograph a fair and accurate representation of how that handgun in that hallway appeared on the day you went into 15 Ridgemont Drive?
It is, yes.
Move to strike the ID and enter as a full exhibit.
No objection.
Okay, it's a full exhibit. You may publish it to the jury if you wish.
So I'll draw your attention to the monitor here. We're looking at a slide of States 4. If you don't mind, Judge, could I have the witness step down?
Go right ahead, sure.
If you could step down, we'll approach the monitor.
Can the jurors all see that okay? Is there a glare? Sometimes there's a glare with these lights. Okay.
And if you could just point out where in that photograph the handgun that you observed is depicted.
Right here on top of the cabinet right here.
Does that red circle now, does that accurately reflect where that handgun is?
Yes.
Okay. And you can step back up to the stand. Thank you. Apologize, the monitor is so far away. But. Relative to where that handgun is, where was the room where you found the defendant?
The room, you can see it in the left portion of the picture, the doorway. That is the room that the defendant was in.
Does that green oval reflect where that doorway was?
Yes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Showing you now what's marked for identification as States 26. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes.
Okay, and what's in this photograph?
This is the top of the cabinet with the handgun.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of the handgun as you observed it on that day, October 1st, 2019?
Yes.
Move to strike the ID and enter as full exhibit.
No objection.
Okay, full exhibit. May publish to the jury.
Showing you a slide of States 26. And again, just to go back, how close to the defendant was that handgun in your best estimation?
Just several feet, 5-6 feet.
So you mentioned earlier, standing in that doorway, you had made another observation inside the room.
Correct.
What was that?
There was a single shell casing just a couple feet from the top of the defendant's head.
Okay. Can you kind of describe for us just briefly what a shell casing is?
So shell is it's the portion of the bullet when you fired from a gun is ejected out the side, and the projectile, the actual bullet, continues out the barrel.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Showing you what's marked for identification as States 109. Do you recognize this?
I do, yes.
And what is this photo of?
It's a photo of the bedroom with all the furniture pushed in, the shell casing, the painter's cloth, and the decedent.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of that last bedroom on the left that you entered on October 1st, 2019?
Yes.
Move to strike the ID and enter as a full exhibit, Judge.
Any objection?
May I just say?
I'm sorry, counsel, what was the number on that one?
109.
109?